A house can check every box and still put you in the wrong part of Denver for your daily life. You can love the kitchen, get the yard you wanted, and feel great about the price. Then 3 months later, you realize the trail you thought was nearby requires a drive. Your favorite parts of Denver are inconvenient to reach, and every normal errand takes longer than you expected. At that point, the problem is not the house, it's everything surrounding it. That is why I want you to think about your next Denver neighborhood differently. Instead of starting with where you think you should live, start with what your life actually looks like when you're not house hunting. Because the best neighborhood for you is usually hiding somewhere inside your normal Tuesday. Think about what happens after work. Maybe you want to get outside before dinner. Perhaps you like grabbing food somewhere without turning it into a whole production. Your dog might need a real walk instead of another lap around the backyard. You may want quick access to a trail because if getting there requires planning, you know you're going to get to use it less. Those details sound small until you repeat them hundreds of times a year. That is where location starts affecting your quality of life. If you're currently looking around Denver, tell me in the comments what matters most outside the house itself. I'm always curious whether people start with trails, walkability, commute, restaurants, their dog, or something completely different. The first thing that I would pay attention to is friction. Every neighborhood creates some. The goal is not finding a place where everything is perfect. Denver does not work that way, and neither does your budget. What matters is choosing the kind of friction that you can live with. Maybe you're fine driving 15 minutes for dinner because you care more about getting outside quickly. Someone else would rather sacrifice some yard space if coffee, groceries, and restaurants are easier to access. A third buyer may honestly give up both because shaving time off the work commute changes 5 days of every week. None of those choices is automatically better. The mistake is making the trade without realizing you made it. That is why I would never judge a Denver neighborhood from a Saturday afternoon showing alone. Weekends can hide in convenience. You're relaxed, you have time, and driving 20 minutes somewhere feels harmless. But now picture a Wednesday at 5:45. You finished work later than expected. Your dog needs exercise. You need groceries. You'd like to squeeze in a walk before it gets dark. Suddenly, the layout of your neighborhood matters a lot more than the backsplash you loved during the showing. This is the version of the life that I want you evaluating. Trail access is a good example because buyers can interpret that phrase very differently. A home can technically be close to outdoor recreation without making that recreation easy to use. There's a difference between seeing a trail on a map and being able to work it naturally into your routine. Before you get excited about proximity, look at how you would actually reach it. Would you walk from the house? Are you realistically getting in the car every time? Does the connection make sense for the way you hike, bike, run, or even walk your dog? The final half mile can matter more than the number on the listing. Convenience changes behavior. If getting outside feels easy, you are more likely to do it on an ordinary day instead of saving it for the weekend. That is why I care less about whether a neighborhood can claim access and more about whether the access works for you. Walkability deserves the same scrutiny. People hear walkable and picture one universal lifestyle, but what you actually want within walking distance may be completely different from somebody else's list. You may care about coffee and dinner. Your ideal route might be groceries and a place to walk your dog. Perhaps you barely care about the restaurants because you would rather have sidewalks that make an evening walk easy. So instead of asking whether an area is walkable, ask what you personally expect to walk to. That gives you a much more useful answer. I would also pay attention to what happens between the destinations. A restaurant being close does not automatically mean that you will walk there. The route matters. Street layouts matter. How comfortable the walk feels to you matters. When you're evaluating a home, actually imagine making that trip regularly rather than looking at mileage alone. The same principle applies to your commute. Expect this is where buyers sometimes underestimate how quickly a small inconvenience compounds. An extra drive may not bother you once. Repeated 5 days a week, it becomes part of your life. Your work pattern should influence how heavily you weight that. If you're remote most of the week, you might gladly tolerate a longer commute in exchange for better access to the things that you use every day. Someone driving across the metro regularly could make the opposite choice. The right answer comes from frequency. Ask yourself, what do you do most often? Then make those activities easier. That sounds obvious, but house hunting has a strange way of making people prioritize the occasional over the ordinary. A beautiful entertaining space feels exciting during a showing. How often are you actually hosting? A giant yard looks impressive. Do you want to maintain it? Extra bedrooms feel useful. Would you trade one of them for a location that gets you outside more often? You do not need to answer those questions the way anybody else would. I just want you answering them before the house answers them for you. This is usually where budget becomes more interesting. Most buyers start with, what can I get for my money? I would add another question. What am I paying to make easier? Part of a home's value to you is the lifestyle around it. You may decide that being closer to the places you actually use is worth having less square footage. Another property could give you considerably more house, but if the location adds friction to your everything you enjoy, the extra rooms may not feel like much of a win. There's no universal formula. Your priorities determine whether you're getting value. If you're deciding between two different areas right now, this is a useful exercise. Write down the 5 things that you do most during a normal week that happen outside your home, not aspirational things, your real routine. Then look at both neighborhoods through that list. That comparison tells you more than another hour scrolling through listings. Your dog can expose the difference especially fast. A large yard may solve one problem while creating another if it depends on getting somewhere else for exercise. On the other hand, a smaller outdoor space could work perfectly if the surrounding area makes your daily walks easy. Home features and neighborhood features have to work together. Otherwise, you can end up paying for something that you thought you would support your lifestyle while continuing to drive somewhere else to actually live it. Errands belong in this conversation too, even though they are not exciting. Nobody moves to Denver because they're passionate about grocery store logistics. You still have to buy groceries. You will need coffee, food, appointments, supplies for your dog, a gym if you use one, and whatever else makes up your normal week. I'm not suggesting that you choose a house because your favorite store is 5 minutes away. I am suggesting that you notice how many small trips your location is creating. A neighborhood can feel wonderfully peaceful until you realize every basic task starts with getting in the car. That might be completely fine for you. Just make it a conscious trade. Then there's the weekend version of your life. This is where I would think beyond the immediate neighborhood. Where do you naturally go when you have free Saturday? If you spend most of your time heading toward the foothills, your idea of convenience may look very different from someone whose weekends revolve around restaurant events and city activities. You're not simply choosing where you sleep. You are choosing the starting point for everything else that you do. This is why I like evaluating neighborhoods from the outside in. Start with your routine. Look at the places that routine takes you. Only then should the house itself become the deciding factor. When buyers reverse that order, the property can become an anchor. They fall in love with the house first, then spend the next several years adapting their lives around it, where it happened to be located. I would rather see you choose a home that removes friction from the life you already enjoy. And if you're moving to Denver from somewhere else, this matters even more. Visiting a neighborhood and living there are completely different experiences. A few hours can tell you whether you like the scenery. It cannot automatically tell you whether the location works at 7:30 a.m. on a weekday morning, after work, when you need groceries, or when you decide that you want to get outside without making a plan. Spend enough time there to test your routine. Drive the routes you would actually use. Walk where you think you would walk. See what getting in your preferred recreation really involves. Pay attention to what feels easy and what already feels annoying. That information is incredibly valuable because inconvenience rarely gets better after closing. The goal is not to find the Denver neighborhood with the longest list of amenities. You're trying to find the place where the amenities you personally care about are easy enough to become part of your real life. That distinction changes the search. So instead of asking whether a neighborhood is good, you start asking whether it works instead of chasing the house with the most features. You can judge which property supports your priorities. Your decision becomes much clearer once you stop trying to buy somebody else's definition of the Denver lifestyle. If you want more videos that break down Denver and West Denver through the way that you actually live, subscribe, because that is exactly how I approach these decisions. And if you're already comparing neighborhoods, tell me which two are currently competing for the top spot. The answer may tell you more about what you value than you realize.